gracias. Ay, mira.
Todos juntos, todos o verde y aquí, un nido formemos para el colibrí.
Colibrí.
A ver quién va de primero.
Hola. ¿Qué dijo? Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hola, hola. Hola, hola. A nosotros nos contaron hoy en la mañana. Muy importante, los que ganan, ¿qué? ¿Cómo se pondrán en contacto con ellos? ¿Usted tiene el teléfono? ¿Sí? Vos estás viendo el video de los patrocinadores en Facebook. Bueno, donde sea. Sí, pues. No vaya a ser que nadie esté viendo nada y yo esté viendo para el Ciprés y... Volvemos aquí en el set principal de Women Economic Forum Costa Rica 2020, el Foro de Mujeres Global de Empoderamiento. Y llegó un bloque ansiado por muchos, que son rifas, sorteos, la tómbola, con cortesías de amigos y amigas de web, patrocinadores que hacen posible que entreguemos estos premios. Así que, si me ayudan en pantalla, vamos a ver quién es el primer afortunado o la primera afortunada. Ganadores de un taller en el Centro Holístico Satori: María José Morales, Laura Van Mierlo, Eric Torres, Jensi Karina Lobo Fernández. Felicidades a todos. Ahora, con un segundo premio, ganadores de una sesión de coaching live: Ania Mejía Soto, Roxana Castro y Jessica Villegas. Ganadores de un curso pregrabado de Meal Prep y lectura de etiquetas nutricionales: Cindy Fisher e Ileana Ramírez. Ganadores de una canasta de productos Conic: Ana Arce, Emilia Falla Solís y Leticia Solís Ginesta. Muchísimas felicidades. Ganador de una cena para 2 personas en el restaurante Inés: Anabel Chavarría Pizarro. Ganadores de un set de joyería: Soraya Orduz y Silvia María Díaz Ruiz. Ganadores de una fresquita Tupperware: Helen Álvarez Solís, Iris María Trigueros Espinosa. Ganador de un cuaderno especial de Baishaki Saja, Gabriela Salazar. Muchas felicidades a todos y todas las ganadoras. Ahora vamos con el segmento de reconocimientos que entrega nuestra coordinadora general, Bernardita Rodríguez, quien nos acompaña en el set.
Buenas tardes, ¿cómo están? Bueno, yo muy agradecida con tantas personas que se han conectado con nosotros y me tocó una de las partes más emocionantes y más lindas. El poder del reconocimiento, poder reconocer a tantas personas que han hecho un gran esfuerzo para lograr lo que han logrado, para seguir la visión, para soñar, para crecer en la trayectoria que han decidido. Y de verdad que esto es algo que definitivamente no podemos dejar pasar por alto. Por lo tanto, nos ha costado mucho porque quisiéramos empapelar nuestro país y el mundo reconociendo a tantas personas. Reconociendo a tantas personas que han hecho una excelente labor desde lo que hacen con su corazón, con su intención y con su esfuerzo. Por lo tanto, vamos ahora a compartirles a ustedes algunas de las personas que logramos identificar y escoger para poder reconocer en este Women Economic Forum en Costa Rica. ¿Ok? Iniciaremos con las empresas, ¿ok? Algunas de las empresas que han hecho trascendencia en nuestro país, por ejemplo, el Banco Nacional con BN Mujer, que ha sido una de las plataformas bancarias de mayor trayectoria enfocadas hacia la mujer. El Grupo ICE, que nos ha apoyado, que tiene una historia de décadas en nuestro país, que ha logrado llevar a nuestro país y ha trascendido fronteras, ha sido uno de nuestros escogidos también para este reconocimiento. El Colegio Surí, que es un colegio que tiene muchos años, casi 100 años, y ha logrado mantenerse como un colegio que apoya a la mujer, tanto desde su infancia, en su adolescencia, como en la adultez, donde ha apoyado a emprendedoras de muchas áreas y de muchos niveles para poder empoderar, para lograr empoderarlas en un oficio que las saque adelante económicamente. La revista Petra, que nos ha apoyado enormemente en toda esta organización de evento y ha logrado ser un aliado, un socio a nosotras, a todas nosotras las mujeres que queremos empoderarnos y lograr avanzar de la mano entre nosotras. Y ahora vamos a reconocer algunas profesionales y algunos profesionales que han logrado mantenerse de una forma impactante dentro de lo que han hecho. Por ejemplo, doña Caterina Guzmán, le estamos haciendo un reconocimiento. Luego a doña Cristiana Figueres, que aunque no está ahora en nuestro país, estuvo a punto de acompañarnos y también decidimos apoyarla con uno de nuestros reconocimientos como una gran mujer empoderada y que ha trascendido fronteras. Doña Glenda Omaña, que ayer nos acompañó, hizo un gran papel y una gran labor como moderadora en uno de los paneles más importantes de mujeres empoderadas y ha sido una hermana para nosotros en todo este evento. Don Mario Alonso Push, desde España, Madrid, también nos ha empujado a seguir adelante, a hacer un grupo de mujeres que no debemos detenernos y debemos de transformarnos hacia lo que queremos ser. Doña Nuria Marín, que fue acompañada también en el panel con doña Glenda, y ayer nos comentó y nos compartió un gran testimonio de todo lo que ha logrado y ha hecho, y por supuesto que la reconocimos como una grandiosa mujer. a Patricia Sandoval, que ha hecho una gran labor comunitaria desde Cartago y sigue adelante. Grandiosa mujer. Voy a compartirles los nombres un poco más rápido para poder estar a tiempo en nuestro próximo set. No quiero limitar jamás la importancia de todas estas personas que estamos mencionando, pero trataremos de compartirlo en nuestras redes sociales para que ustedes puedan enterarse de quiénes son estas grandiosas personas que nos han acompañado en esta parte de reconocimiento. Doña Vivian Lieberman, que también nos acompañó ayer, doña Melisa Monge, que no ha estado con nosotros, doña Olga Cosa de Picado, que para quien no la recuerda, porque tal vez sos muy joven, es una mujer sumamente empoderada y que a pesar de haber quedado viuda y a cargo de sus hijos, sacó adelante y ha sido quien ha marcado una trayectoria en los medios en nuestro país. Así que le damos un grandioso aplauso. A Tajana Latinovic, que está en Islandia y ayer nos acompañó, y rápidamente les comento que Islandia es el primer país del mundo que tuvo una mujer presidente. Así que, adelante. Muchas gracias por todo y sigamos adelante, que no, esto no ha terminado. Nos faltan un par de horitas. ¿Ok?
Así es, Bernardita, muchísimas gracias. Vamos ahora a dar pase a nuestro siguiente bloque, Mujer e Identidad. ¿Qué nos caracteriza como grupo? Tenemos a cargo de este bloque a la doctora Sharon Mijares y a Tania Amador. Sharon Mijares es psicóloga, directora de psicología en el Instituto de Ciencias Humanas de California, profesora Bradman University y National University, líder de empoderamiento femenino, tallerista en Costa Rica, Ecuador, Egipto, India, México, Uganda, Escocia, Estados Unidos y Venezuela. Autora de varios libros y ministra sufi. Por su parte, la señora Tania Amador es fundadora y CEO de Corner of Love, organización benéfica mundial, nombrada representante de la sociedad civil para Nicaragua en la OEA, pastora cristiana y ha sido reconocida por numerosas fundaciones y grupos cívicos por su dedicación a personas en estado de vulnerabilidad. Les recuerdo que pueden hacernos llegar todas sus consultas para nuestras panelistas en el chat de Facebook Live. Y ahora le doy el pase a la doctora Sharon.
Okay, greetings. First, I want to thank Harbin Aurora for connecting with Bernardita Rodriguez and everyone else in bringing the Women's Economic Forum to Costa Rica, and honor Doña Eleanor Dedinger, because I'm pretty sure she is behind much of what has happened. Now, I'm the author of a new book, which is called The Power of the Feminine, Facing Shadow, Evoking Light. And much of what I'm going to be talking about is in that book. We are in the midst of a profound planetary shift as we approach the end of an old age and the emergence of a new one. Many people have felt helpless during this coronavirus spread. Simultaneously, it influenced economic changes impacting vast amounts of people throughout the planet, many who were already experiencing crises based on economic inequalities, political and environmental influences. To meet the needs of this transformational time, many are focusing on deconstructing old patterns and outworn ideologies so that we can clearly understand our human past and create a better future for all. I believe the tendency to demonize the other is rooted in patriarchal ideology. The 2005 Human Rights Watch report focused on comparing religious wars in Ireland, Cyprus, the Balkans, Rwanda, Burma, Sri Lanka, Nigeria, Sudan, Israel, Palestine, the Philippines, and Indonesia. However, in 2013, the Human Rights Watch focused more on tradition, values, corporate accountability, refugee crises, and environmental neglect. These root causes of conflict and strife are becoming increasingly apparent. They're affecting us all. Yet wars continue to expand on a global basis. Suppression and violence toward the natural inhabitants of conquered lands, including Palestinians, Tibetans, and indigenous peoples of the Americas, Africa, and Polynesia, are ongoing. There is an obvious split between caring, factually informed people and self-serving ones. Approximately 25,000 children die daily due to starvation, while 1,500 tons of food are wasted in the United States and 8 million tons of food are wasted annually throughout the EU. In 2019, a Swedish study noted that 1/3 of all produced in the world, approximately 1.3 billion tons, is lost or wasted every year. Globally, if food waste could be represented as its own country, it would be the largest greenhouse gas emitter. So there are many things that we're looking at that need to be changed. There are many things that are speaking to us about how do we become a better humanity? How do we begin to deal with the problems that we have so that we can begin to create a totally new age? We are in the midst of a profound planetary shift. It represents the end of an old age and the emergence of a new one. Patriarchal ideologies and controls are being challenged and will slowly undergo a transformation. In the meantime, many people have been feeling helpless, considering the threat of the coronavirus, the economic changes impacting vast numbers of people throughout the planet, many who are already experiencing crisis based on economic inequalities, wars, political and environmental influences. All of these are creating greater numbers of refugees as well. To meet the needs of this transformational time, many are focusing on deconstructing these old patterns and outworn ideologies so that we can clearly understand our human past and create a better future for all. Many people see women as the transforming hope of the world, but women cannot do it alone. Women's ways are needed to foster the relational caring quality of the feminine spirit in everyone, male and female, all races, nations, and cultures. This is the key to greater peace. The feminine archetype is relational in its essence. This archetypal force is available to all, but women need to recognize it and bring it into their hearts, minds, souls, and bodies, as women have also been indoctrinated with patriarchal ideologies and behaviors. Without an archetypal presence of feminine nature, women might simply repeat these indoctrinated patriarchal patterns. Authentic women's leadership is not dominating, and it seeks to empower all. Therefore, it is vital that women, men, and people of all colors, rich and poor, and all religious traditions come together to embrace the feminine archetype and co-create a new world that fully honors Mother Earth and all of her species. The idea that human beings are superior to nature and that the earth exists simply to serve our needs is inherently flawed. Humanity has suffered greatly due to the resulting dissociation from the natural environment and the organized irresponsibility of institutions and processes that promote social inequalities in many societies. We can shift from agribusiness to agroecology, where food production is not aimed at economic gains, but toward the ethical use of natural resources to produce healthy foods. Living in harmony with the natural world and one another paves the way for a healthier future. But to bring it into being, we first need to dispel human prejudice against those who differ from our preferred groups. No one group is superior to another. We are all connected in this quantum field. In that women and nature were simultaneously demeaned, this occurred over a few thousand years ago. Restoring a healthy and balanced relationship with both women and nature brings healing and restorative power. We need to regain our sense of connectedness. And so we are here together at this conference to share our stories of what we are doing to help with the healing and to empower one another. The Women's Economic Forum has brought women, and many men as well, may I note, together to network and honor the economic and social advances of women. And we want to assure that all networking is focused on social changes that will assure the well-being and continuance of all life. The environmental challenges before us are enormous and complex. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, concluded that unless we make major changes long before 2030, we face increasing and irreversible climate disasters. Existence of life on Earth is seriously threatened, presenting a devastating legacy to our descendants. Environmental scientists and activists are working diligently to change this direction. There is hope, especially if governmental institutions globally discontinue use of fossil fuels, and all generations are being called on to increase the use of energy-efficient products and to employ safe practices, joining in unity of effort toward environmental restoration. One of the side effects of this pandemic we've been experiencing is that less attention has been going toward environmental practices. For example, stores are only using in-store shopping bags as opposed to bringing our own bags. Thus, there has been an increased use of plastic. This is discouraging on local levels, but be assured that environmental activists are doing all they can do right now to help restore balance. And we need to look for every single way that we can contribute toward this healing. On another level, there is increasing strife of various groups of people as they challenge those unlike themselves. Ideologies are in conflict. False information is being presented as truth. We can no longer count on common human knowledge, as there are increasing and differing interpretations of it. All of this is part of the breakdown of this old age. Structures on all levels are changing, and we simply cannot trust many of our responses to it. Women and men have been deeply influenced by these interjected patriarchal colonist ways, and leadership motivations and styles are often infected by them. Racial conflicts, gender, and economic inequality are the visible elephants staring at us from the center of wherever we live. We have had over 3,000 years of formalized religious beliefs, but are we a better humanity for it? Each religion has some form of the golden rule. Generally, it says to do unto others what we would wish done for ourselves, to treat others as we would wish ourselves to be treated. In our book, The Power of the Feminine, we point out that humanity has been unable to ground these precious ideals inherent within the golden rule due to the repression of the feminine. The living woman was repressed as well as the relational feminine archetype within both women and men. This is what was needed to ground our spiritual and religious ideals, to take them beyond conceptions to actual ways of living with one another. And this is one of the ways that women are helping to create a new world. I do this in my own way through my books by not only gathering together the information that I believe we need to know and bring that elephant that's staring us in the middle of the room into our conversations, but also I bring other people in to contribute their voices. In fact, this has occurred in all but one of my books. I have had them edited or co-authored books so that other people have a voice as well. We need to find many ways of bringing in a multitude of voices, a multitude of energies, and the caring that comes with it. And this is where we as women are the solution. As the mothers of the human race, we instinctively know how to nurture, how to smooth conflicts, and how to love. But we also have to face our shadow side, our own patriarchal power complexes. The authentic feminine does not seek power over another or to control for selfish reasons. She seeks to heal, to nurture the good, and to bring out the creative potential within all life. Self-examination is the critical key to this needed transformation. One group, gender, race, nation, or religion cannot make these changes alone. It is time to deconstruct the meta-stories of the past and to move into what the feminist psychologist Carol Gilligan calls an ethics of care. To begin with, we need to have care of self and how we relate with all the facets of our lives. How do we deal with balancing beauty and empowerment, How do we deal with truth? How do we deal with all the issues that are facing us? Because what we learn from ourselves is what we bring into life. And how we exemplify our beliefs and make them real is, again, what we bring into life. The love and compassion emanating from a healthy relationship with self will automatically extend to others, our families, our communities, and all of nature. The ultimate manifestation of the feminine is a profound love that needs to manifest from within each woman. It includes within it all children, all people, all species. We are all included in the womb and heart space of the goddess. This all-caring and powerful love force is what must manifest in order to create the healing needed for the many imbalances and injustices before us. We're all working together to bring change, and we have unique ways of doing it, so let us nurture them all. The compassionate and powerful feminine spirit may create a quantum opening into a new era, one in which women lead the way. Thank you. Tanya?
Yes, I'm here. Are we ready?
I think we're on our own.
Okay, very good. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here as part of the Women Economic Forum. I'm talking to you today from Seattle, Washington, but normally I would be in Latin America, either in Colombia or in San Jose, Costa Rica, or maybe even near the Nicaragua border in northern Costa Rica. But today I'm back in the Pacific Northwest and have the chance to talk to this wonderful group today from Women Economic Forum about the migration crisis that's happening right now throughout Central and South America, and especially how you can increase your own impact towards helping women refugees. And it's, Sharon, thank you so much for your words. It was so interesting to listen to your perspective and all of that very rich information, which I'll just grab right into my backpack and take on this journey with me as I talk to you all about what women are going throughout, like I said, South and Central America. I'm going to try to share my screen. They told me today that I could. Let's see if we can. Oh, no, it looks like it's not going to allow me. All right, well, I'll use them as my notes. Well, my name is Tanya Amador, and I'm the Global Director of Corner of Love, and we are a Christian charity that operates in Latin America. And for about 20 years, I lived in Nicaragua until 2018 when I moved to Costa Rica. At that time, there was a socio-political crisis unfolding in Nicaragua, and many Nicaraguans were pouring over the border into Costa Rica. In fact, in the last 2 years, over 110,000 Nicaraguans have come into Costa Rica. But at the same time that was happening, other countries were going through problems as well, creating a massive migration crisis that's happening right now that so few people know about. And it has to do with 6 million people moving about South and Central America, primarily from Venezuela, and next Nicaragua and also Cuba. Our organization, Corner of Love, now runs 2 relief centers in Costa Rica and also works in Cucuta, right by the Venezuelan border, helping these refugees. And when we talk about 6 million, almost half of them are women, and they've been forced to leave their countries because of violent repression, lack of medicine, in Venezuela, in some cases, even starvation and lack of food. And Corner of Love has been helping meet their needs, but mostly just extending a friendly hand to these women who have a really hard time as they travel through different countries looking for a more stable life for their children. And some of them have many kids with them in tow, 2, 3, 4, even as many as 7. Our mobile services throughout Latin America are run by native coordinators. For instance, a Colombian living in Colombia who's reaching Venezuelan refugees for Corner of Love, or a Mexican living in Mexico who's reaching Nicaraguan refugees on behalf of Corner of Love. And this work is going quite well. We're able to stay in touch with them, exchange prayers, hear about things that they're asking prayer for, and sometimes even finance things like surgeries and visits to clinic. Most of these refugees have no health care whatsoever as they travel around through these different countries. But it can be very frustrating for those of us who are doing this work, because like I mentioned before, we hear very little about it on the news in North America. And why is that? And I'm hoping that today, with this small presentation that I'm sharing with you, more people will get informed, be willing to spread awareness about what's going on, and even connect with Corner of Love if you would like to have a bigger impact in helping women refugees. Now, like I mentioned, a socio-political crisis caused my own departure from Nicaragua in 2018, but in Venezuela, this has been going on for 2 decades already. And today, many churches are being attacked in places like Nicaragua and Cuba and Venezuela. It causes many women to set off on foot, and they arrive at border cities often not even knowing where they should go. In fact, some of them approach us and say, "Where do you think that I should go?" That's a very scary situation to be in, not knowing at all, you know, where you should go, who can help women refugees. So Corner of Love has set up clusters of Native-led refugee coordinators who help these people find shelter, get access to food in the community where they're trying to resettle, also access to medicine, and connect with many different NGOs like Corner of Love so they can access the resources out there for migrants and refugees. In the last 24 months, our organization has helped over 40,000 displaced migrants and refugees throughout Central and South America. And we know this because we just had a wonderful circle of international interns digitize all of our records just recently. We found that very interesting. Because we found out that 73% of those that we've helped care for have been Nicaraguan of the 40,000, followed by 21% from Venezuela, and then the rest from Cuba and other nationalities like Angola, Burkina Faso, Sudan, and Haiti. And not all would understand that people from those African countries and Haiti as well are moving through Central and South America, but they are. In the last year, Corner of Love has distributed 1,300,221 value in medicine, and that has primarily been in Costa Rica, also with another 10% in Nicaragua, and a little bit in Colombia and Panama, directly to the hands of refugees who need simple medications for infections, need vitamins, need lots of different topicals, dermatology remedies and things like that, and really just extending a friendly hand to them. Of course, coronavirus has been super tough coming on the stage for us, those of us who are caring for all of these refugees, and Corner of Love converted itself into one of the largest givers of PPE this year in Latin America. Very tough times. But most notable for our organization have been 2 border crises that took place in Costa Rica in 2020. In July, there was a situation with over 500 Nicaraguans who were stranded at the country line, and they were not allowed to return to their own home country, and ended up being penned up in a small area, almost like animals. It was a very terrible situation. It was very difficult to stomach the injustice as they kind of had to wait in a no man's land where they were actually on Nicaraguan soil, couldn't return back into Costa Rica, and lacked a coronavirus negative test in order to be allowed re-entry into their own home. In that situation, our organization brought in hot meals for them, medicine, organized all of the victims there, getting documentation for them in order to help advocate for testing and reach out to the rest of the world and let people know what was going on. But it was followed immediately by another situation with hundreds of Cubans who were having a very similar fate. They wanted to cross into Nicaragua in order to move north, and the Nicaraguan government would not allow them into the country. And today they're still in the northern canton of La Cruz. So situations are still ongoing, and it seems like sometimes one crisis after another, but with 6 million, how is this ever going to stop? There will constantly be new groups of people trying to cross borders, settling in different cities throughout Central America. And what we really need to do is share with our friends around the world about this crisis of 6 million people moving around these countries in Latin America, so that more people are aware of the violent repression in their countries that's causing them to move. And really be able to, the rest of us, connect with nonprofits and other organizations who are trying to do anything they can to advocate for these people, and especially the women, like I said. We've had many situations throughout the year where women have slept outside our doors. When we open the doors in the morning, we find whole families who've passed the entire night outside our front office door. And we just don't want to see that situation continue. We would like to see better integration into the host countries and basically just do anything we can for them so that they can stabilize their migration status, get the documents they need to stay in country, and be able to look for a job. They often don't even have money for bus fare to go anywhere inside the countries they're living in. So we just thank you all for listening today about these struggles that the women are going through as part of this migration crisis that involves 6 million people throughout Latin America. I leave you with a video that was from that situation I mentioned at the Nicaraguan border, just one of the many crises that we lived this year. Let's see if we're able to get it up. Mm-hmm. Is it showing my screen? Oh, shoot. Looks like it's been disabled again. Okay, no worries. Well, that has a lot of images, but I imagine that you can...
If you put your cursor all down, you should see share screen, because I can see it.
I did share screen, but it says it's been disabled for this meeting. So that's all right. All right. Well, I'm sure that you can imagine some of these images of the crowds of people and the situation in front of us. 500 people at the country line. There was only one bathroom for all 500 people, and none of them had their own food or water. And that's where our organization came in. And in the end, it was a victorious situation because they were allowed to return to Nicaragua after testing was obtained for all of these hundreds of people. 22 of them tested positive for coronavirus, and Corner of Love continued to care for them until they became negative and could go home as well. So like I said, in the end, it was a victorious situation, but it's one of many. And we've been receiving group after group after group at different borders throughout Latin America. And we think that it's just key that everyone raise awareness about what's going on in these three principal countries where most of the 6 million people are coming from: Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. So thank you all for listening. And I just invite you to look up, through Google and your own investigations and read a couple articles about it and let people know that we would like to hear more in North America and around the world about these 6 million people moving around.
So now we're going to move into a joint conversation because in some ways our talks link. Tanya is really emphasizing what I was talking about on the boots level. She's out there on the ground level doing the work, and that is so important. Migrations are a serious event that are occurring and will increase throughout the planet, not just in Latin America, but they're occurring throughout the planet because of environmental changes, the wars, and the inequities that are facing so many people. So we need a lot of attention to refugees and these migrations. Now, one of the things that happened at the Palomas border, or the Mexican border with New Mexico and Texas and everything, was with ICE, the splitting up the families and not letting people into the United States, and the problems associated with that, with immigration, is that a lot of people were coming in from Central America and Venezuela and different countries, and some had sponsors. And so they were like ICE was just dumping them in a Greyhound station in a little town called Deming, New Mexico. But what was wonderful was that the churches rushed to the rescue, and people began to put the words out. The Christian churches in Deming and the Unitarian Universalists in Silver City, and they began to ask for all the ways that people could help. And then these things were brought and dispensed, and people came that could speak Spanish and talk for the children. Now it's no longer happening in the United States in Deming. Instead, the people are being dumped on the Mexican side. And so again, good-willed people, many of them are women, are creating places to house these people and also take care of them if they've contracted the virus. So Tanya, I'm sure you can speak more to this.
Yes, yes. We've seen many refugees who have contracted the virus in Costa Rica and Honduras, and they need obviously special care because they can't access local clinics. And we even do have some coordinators who are in Mexico tending to refugees that are there closer to the U.S. border. And what we have found is that the refugees themselves are they have such a high level of care for each other that they keep very good track of each other, and there's actually a way to weave in a lot of additional support along their journey wherever it is they're going by mapping all of these different groups, especially from one country. It's not that hard to help them help each other more, and I'd like to see even more of that go on, and an even better network of organizations who can say, I can help in this location and I can help with this piece, and then put those pieces into their hands. Today, through technology, with all of the texting and WhatsApp and everything that we utilize, I just find that we can do more for refugees remotely. And us women can actually take on more of being part of the solution for these folks and helping them out, like I said, by equipping other refugees, because they just have such a high level of care amongst each other that it's almost like if we really put our heads together, we could make stations along the way, if you will. So I'm very hopeful, actually, with what I see, especially with Nicaraguan and Venezuelan refugees. If with just a little bit more assistance, they could, really gain immeasurable leaps ahead in their resettlement.
It's a little more difficult for the people that are approaching the United States border, and they're not quite receiving that kind of level of care. It's dependent upon the people that gather and reach out. I can remember when I was first hearing of what was happening and the imprisonment of people while they were waiting to see what they were going to do with them, and feeling an immense despair. And then when the opportunity came to know there was something I could do, you're so lucky to be right there working in the trenches, let me say, working right there with boots on the ground. But I'll tell you, I experienced great joy just in hearing I could run to the store and buy beans, rice, diapers, and give up all my Trader Joe's and Sprouts bags because they needed bags because everything had been taken away from them at the border and they had nothing. And so being able to share at least gave us the sense of being able to contribute and help in some way. And given the fact that there's so many people shut down around the planet, we can't travel as we've always traveled, and we can't get out and about as we're used to. And the virus has closed us down, but there is an opportunity in that shutdown to, in the lack of all the ways that we entertain ourselves, suddenly being faced with how can we help in the midst of tragedies? How can we help in all this difficulty? And not just sitting alone looking up ways to entertain ourselves while shut down with the COVID, but reaching out and finding ways that we can contribute and still stay safe and keep others safe as well.
We do have a group of 26 that's at the Mexico-US border that Corner of Love is assisting, and we've been walking with this certain group for about 6 months now. And one of the things that we have found helpful is to advocate for them by really studying their situation and writing letters on behalf of their family, letters that they can carry with them, that are notarized, that are in English, that explain their situation. And we have found that with these 26 individuals at their different junctures, whether it be an immigration meeting or sometimes encounters with police, etc., by being able to, share something in English that's from an U.S. organization or a global organization has been just really, really helpful for them, because it kind of spells it all out right there on paper and lets that official know that someone in the world cares about them. So for these people who feel without a home, without a country, I just think that the more that we can come around them in different creative ways, and also by giving them things in writing, is a big help.
Right. I had mentioned the golden rule in my talk because the golden rule shows up in every single religious tradition. And it's in indigenous traditions. It's a bottom line for how we're supposed to behave as human beings. And this whole refugee crisis and many things that people are being faced with has really put us in the position of maybe fully beginning to ground and live this golden rule and taking care of one another and no longer living selfish and self-centered, isolated lives. We are part of a quantum field. We are all connected and we all manifest from the same divine presence. And so how do we engage with and treat one another and offer assistance in times of need is vitally important.
Absolutely. And thank God for Zoom right now, because the pandemic is really robbing us of the opportunity for visitation to these groups. One of the things that we really like to do is really invite people to come and actually be with the refugees, face to face, and share a meal with them and hear their testimony about what they've been through in their own home country. People don't leave their own nation for light reasons.
Right.
Everyone has a very moving story. It's rare to find someone, who moves about for something that wasn't a life-threatening experience. So they're just very rich testimonies that need to be heard by more people around the world. And it's really best when you can hear in person.
I hope that you're recording some of these. Of course, there's always the issue of confidentiality, with permission, of course, or in some ways it protects confidentiality, but lets the stories still go out there.
Yes, for sure. That's actually a big part of what Corner of Love does, often in writing, which is allows for more of their privacy, and just getting that out there and into the hands of leaders in the world so that they can read about what's going on or see video. It's a very powerful part of what we're doing.
So I have one more question that I'd written down to ask you, which is, what was the initial act or moment that drew you to this work?
Well, many years ago, I think it was in 1992, I visited Nicaragua for the very first time, and I'm married to a gentleman who's from Matagalpa, Nicaragua. And on that fateful trip, the health centers were on strike, and we were visiting his hometown, very small, poor hometown really. And so a woman had come to have her baby in the health center on horseback from a village, completely 9 months pregnant, and stopped at my father-in-law's store asking to buy some juice and things. And so I observed her that she was ready to give birth and thought, wow, she's come by horseback. Well, a few hours later, she found the health center closed because of that strike, and she ended up delivering her baby girl in the park. And it was a very difficult scene. I went over there with my husband and offered just some blankets and things that we had because we were traveling with our first son. And just the sheer smell of the scene and what it looked like, and herself there lying there, it really impacted me. It changed me forever, to the point that I thought, if I'm going to start coming to Nicaragua, there's no way that I could just come on vacation and not help. We're going to have to find ways to help. And so we did that. That got us going. That really sprang us into action. And the first thing we did was build a preschool in the San Ramon Matagalpa area, and then went on to do other projects of schools and churches and some wells and other things before the medical, dental, optical brigades. But those very impactful experiences like that are really gifts, aren't they? They're really, yes. It's like a present that God gives you, because it just completely spurs you into action. And it was a difficult day for me. I had my own 4-month-old, and seeing that happen right there was shocking. I mean, almost to the point that I had a stomach ache from seeing it. But today I really consider it such a gift, because right. It just brought us forward with so many plans.
And so many people right now are being faced with these opportunities to see what's going on around them, possibly right on their own doorstep. And so here is the opportunity to be receptive. What is our gift in this moment that teaches us where we can give and where we can help others.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And we just need some solutions to the pandemic so we can get back to connecting people with the need, right?
Yes, except for the pandemic is part of it. It's like it's staring us in the face, it's slowing us down, and it's forcing people into facing themselves. I hope that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Many do report that they've had relationships improving with themselves and with families, but then we've got the problem of it also brings out, are we just going to think of ourselves? Or again, this golden rule, does it open us to think of others? Everything in life can be an awakener, but do we listen? And you give a great example of an opportunity in the midst of a very painful scene to listen, to see, and to bring a change into your own life.
Yes, thank you for saying. Yeah, we hear from the refugees, that they're scared. They're really scared, with everything going on around them, and they're not in their homes, which were in Venezuela or Nicaragua or Cuba. And so, imagine being up against this pandemic alone, but then not having your own roof or your own bed or your loved ones around you to deal with it. It's, the fear that they relate to us is sometimes heartbreaking, and we do a lot of praying with them and just listening to what they feel, and just trying to give them a place to feel at home, even though they're so far from home. And I think that that's been a really good thing about coronavirus, is that it's really just put a big magnifying glass on the human side of everything and human needs.
Right.
Because before we all slowed down, it's in some ways so much easier to just kind of steamroll through your own life without stopping to see all those human needs. And it's human nature to just kind of protect ourselves and not go near the needy or those types of situations. But I think that there are some positives about COVID that have brought us more together with different people groups.
It's also inherent within human nature, not just to protect ourselves, but the desire to help others and to feel a part of a larger picture, and to be able to give. When we can give and we can support and we can help others, we definitely feel better about ourselves. It's
Yes.
not just all about this individualistic, self-serving safety thing, or, I'm getting all I deserve. I no longer even like to hear those kind of phrases, I deserve this or whatever. Everybody deserves it. How can we live in a way that everything we do is supporting a better world for all? And that's where the old world is breaking down, that this new one can emerge. Yeah, it looks a little messy in the process, but let's pray that something better comes forth.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yes. So, and I'm greeting you from Seattle, and yourself, Sharon.
I'm here in Grass Valley, California. I was living in Silver City, New Mexico until May. I moved here because one of the family member was in need, and I recognized that it was serious and that I needed to make an immediate move so that I could provide a place. And I lived here before, so it wasn't unknown territory to me, and it's all working out well. But sometimes I long to be back in Silver City, New Mexico, and helping at the Palomas border, where they are working with all those refugees and doing some very good things. I read the weekly report still, and it is strange to be. I know I do good things in my life, but they're all done mainly through the internet. Or with people that I, happen to have a connection with, like family or whatever, but we're not having a lot of connecting with other people. You're very lucky to be based in this work.
Yes, we were able to obtain a letter to approve the humanitarian work that kind of exempted us from the vehicular restrictions and the other restrictions throughout the canton there in Costa Rica. And thank God for that, because we really worked very closely with the public force and police to bring all of these hot meals and food to the refugees and serve them. They've been nothing but accommodating and really right there with us. So I just have nothing but wonderful things to say about Costa Rican officials who really have such a heart for these people who are displaced. And it isn't like that everywhere. Because like I said, we also work in Cucuta, Colombia, and Mexico and some other places. And so you see a little bit of everything on, as the part of the officials. Some who really want to see you help, some who want to see even more help come, and then others who are just not as helpful as you approach, with the different things that you can offer the refugees there in need. So I just have nothing but praise for the Costa Rican government who, really have very wonderful individuals in all these public service positions, and they really have an eye out for especially the kids. They just always allow Corner of Love access so that we can bring in school shoes, backpacks, juice, all the different things that kids need. And when they're there, in the tents and right there on the side of the road near the country line, all of a sudden you're really in the hands of whichever police are watching over. You could be in the hands of someone who has them in mind and wants to do good things and be part of a solution for them, or you can be in the hands of someone who, not so much and is more of an obstacle for them to receive care. So it's a great thing when you're able to partner at some level, because whether you partner at a scale 1 or a scale 10, you always partner with the local officials.
I lived in Costa Rica for 8 years, and when I think about it, I consider it to be a feminine country. It's got a very feminine feel to it. Mm-hmm. And it's a place where the goddess is alive and well.
It does. Yes.
Also through the relationships that are built and the many ways that people are doing these good things and the many environmental efforts that are there in Costa Rica as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's an exceptional country, no doubt. Mm-hmm. Yes, a very different feel than, say, for instance, Colombia, where the hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans come across the border in huge numbers, huge. Even much bigger than what Costa Rica receives, and a very, very different feel in the two countries who are host nations for refugees.
Right. I go to Colombia often. I have friends there, and I actually think it's a wonderful country, but it has a very different feel, as you note, than Costa Rica. But one of the things I think is very important, and I think this is where travel benefits us, is to get to know every country and to get to know different cultures and to get to become at home with all the diversity within this planet.
Right.
And much of it.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. The more people can travel, the more they understand. It's as simple as that.
You eat the food, you hear the music, you connect with the people, and also going along with the work that you do is that to enable other people to have some of the benefits that those of us that are privileged have been able to have.
Right.
That all can partake of the riches of this world.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Mm-hmm. I wish more people, like I said, would be able to observe it, because there's just no substitute for actually having your 2 feet on the ground and seeing what people go through to try to find a better life,
Having a sense of heart to heart.
Yeah. Especially the moms who have their kids there with them in the field. And it's just, in some ways, when people arrive for the first time, if they've never done relief work like this, it's unbelievable. You arrive to find people who are willing to lay their head on concrete outside and, just black plastic over them, and all because they need to get from point A to point B, but they really don't know if they'll stay at point B or move on to point C. And so it's just quite a moving experience. And I hope that more and more people, as the pandemic subsides, can get into these different spots where they can partake in the solution.
Mm-hmm. And to also have the amount of respect and reverence for these people that are able to adapt to the most dire of circumstances, for instance, like sleeping on the cement. And I have to admire the human spirit that is able to endure so much
Yes.
in order to sustain themselves and those they love.
And grow through it, right?
Yeah.
Because many of them had a different job and then they had to just evolve and do other things to survive, and they end up learning a new trade, and just becoming more resilient. I mean, I have scarcely found any refugee moms who don't say that they grew through the whole experience.
Yeah, well, figure those mothers that make that decision to take off with their children to begin with, just that decision was an incredibly gutsy, brave thing to do. And then to head off into the unknown without knowing how you'll be received or whether or not you'll even have a place or anything that you need. That's amazing. And you have to realize that people are coming from pretty dire circumstances to even set out on such a journey.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, they're just not light circumstances. They're life-threatening events that often lead these people to flee their own countries, and that stays with them forever. You know, it's like a heavy backpack that they wear everywhere, because a lot of them relive those scenes that caused them to leave, and helping them unpack all of that, and through prayer and just relating it to other people helps lighten the load. And I really think that dialogue is one of the key things in their healing and their ability to assimilate to the new country that they're staying in, because keeping it all inside and not having the chance to talk about it is can be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
In fact, we've even had some refugees take their own life, which is just horrible, but it does happen. Sometimes they just feel so alone and feel like their journey is broken, like they just aren't able to move on. I'm sure you've heard of things like that too.
Well, I'm hearing about it because of many things, the economic strife and the pandemic, the shutdown and the depression it's causing. There are just many things contributing. But, the real need is to awaken. I'm a psychologist, and I know what I've grown through in my own life. And the real need is to awaken to the importance of this life we've been given. Right. And to do everything we can within it to grow, develop, to heal, and the impetus for that being the motivation of how it affects the whole of the planet.
Yeah, and do you agree, Sharon, that sometimes people who contemplate suicide are really just only one conversation away from being able to deal with their circumstances? If there had been just one conversation to unpack all of the hurt, it might have made a big difference.
One of the things that a lot of people miss the point on suicide is very often it's an act where that's one thing you have control over. If you feel you have no control, it's like a problem-solving device. Okay, I can at least get out of this. Right. And it's really sad that anybody would reach that point. But yes, if they knew there was some solution, if they knew there was something available, then they might not go for that final act of control, because it's an act of control, making the decision to go out of life.
Yes. Well, that's although it's a very sad topic, it's actually something that, when I think about it, I do feel happiness, because I feel like the work that we're doing and that many other organizations do, it makes a difference. It really makes a difference. And those people consider Corner of Love their friend. They say, I have friends inside Corner of Love, or these different organizations, and I know that it does make a difference.
I'm going to share something with you because I think you would appreciate this as we're getting there to end our talk. I mentioned my book, which is right here. You can't really see it here. That's the trouble with when you have these backgrounds, that they don't let things come in and out. But anyway, it says this book is dedicated to all refugees seeking asylum due to violence, wars, famine, or lack of water, as we each bear responsibility for their plight.
And tell me the cover name.
The Power of the Feminine, Facing Shadow, Evoking Light. It's still in the publication process.
Wonderful.
There you go. You can see it.
Now I can see it. Yes, The Power of the Feminine.
I don't dare move it or it'll disappear.
Exactly.
But yeah, we dedicate it to refugees because like I said, in that dedication, we all bear responsibility for their plight.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, I'm afraid I have to sign off, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. I have something starting in just 5 minutes, but it's been just an enormous pleasure talking with you, Sharon, about all of this. I hope that you can keep us going here for just a few minutes, it sounds like, until they...
I know that pretty soon Harbin Aurora and Jean Shinoda Boland are going to be speaking, and my guess is that they're going to be speaking also about 2022 and the meeting of all the women in New Delhi, India, as women together to
there.
balance of the world. And so I hope if you have to attend something else and you can't be with that you will be able to listen to it.
For sure. For sure.
The video.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well,
close.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to sign off. I hope that they'll catch up here and bring Bernardita back in. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Muchas gracias, Sharon, y muchas gracias, Tania, por compartir con nosotras todas estas experiencias. Realmente enriquecedor. Ahora vamos a nuestro último bloque del día de hoy, el poder de la sororidad. Solas podemos llegar lejos, juntas podemos llegar más allá y crear un cambio positivo para nosotros y para el planeta. Este será conducido desde India por la doctora Harbin Arora, reconocida por Forbes como una de las 100 mujeres influyentes del mundo en 2019, presidenta global de Women Economic Forum y All Ladies League, presidenta fundadora de la Cámara de Comercio e Industria de Mujeres de la India, fundadora de BioAyurveda y canciller de la Universidad Rai. Le acompañará desde Estados Unidos Jean Shinoda, psiquiatra, escritora y conferencista internacional, representante en la fundación de la Cumbre Mundial de la ONU Mujeres, miembro distinguido vitalicio de la Asociación Estadounidense de Psiquiatría, autora de más de 13 libros y promotora junto a Harbin de la Quinta Conferencia Mundial de Mujeres 2022. Las dejo entonces con la doctora Harbin Arora y la doctora Jean Shinoda.
Hello, my sisters. Namaste from India. How are you doing? My dear soul sister Jean Shinoda is here for the concluding section today. A warm welcome, Jean. Hi, are you here?
Yes, hi. I'm talking from...
Okay, I see you now. How are you, my sister?
Oh, I'm in California and the weather is fine after we had all these fires. We had wildfires and global warming was really expressing itself. And so to have blue skies again and have time to learn from the pandemic we're in. I mean, we're all sheltered in place here in the United, or at least in my part of California. It's a whole different experience to be sheltered in place.
Tell us about it, because everybody's had so many different experiences, with the COVID, I've had mine. A lot of people have experienced it, apart from the public health challenge, of course, but the whole lockdown has pushed us back into confronting our own innermost test selves in a way, and it's been transformative, whatever the path each person may have followed. You said a chance to learn from this pandemic. What were your learnings, my dear soul sister Jean? I really want to know, because in that learning is awakening for many of us.
Well, there's a word, liminal, that applies to when you are in between what was and you can't go back. And you're in between, and we don't know yet what next will be like. But what we do, how we respond in this in-between time, which is the liminal time that the planet is experiencing the pandemic, where we, in some parts of the world, are ignoring it, other parts of the world, lockdown. In the United States, every state is doing it differently. Major cities are doing it differently. My part of the world, it's sheltering in place, and the effort is to open things gradually. But then there are waves of infections and deaths. We're at 230,000, I think now, deaths. Or more, actually. And so what is it to be sheltered in place or locked down? What is it to, in my experience, one of the things that's happening is that people are dreaming more. We're very much aware that we are at risk, and that also if we are sheltered in place, we're very fortunate. We learn about what's happening with lots of other people. And so what do you do when you're in this in-between place? One of the things is, if you pay attention to your dreams, sometimes they can be instructive. So is this happening all over? And we are coming together. I mean, we are aware that it's planetary. It's not just national. And that is a whole shift in consciousness as well. So it's probably going to be another year before we all get through this. But in this in-between, what are we going to learn? For one thing, what will women do to make a difference? And you're creating and implementing and sponsoring the Women Economic Forums all over the world. And the one in Costa Rica now, brings together, even though it's not in person so much as it is virtually, women meet each other who are aware of what's going on and who are delighted to meet one another. And what I keep encouraging is keep going after you've been part of a Women's Economic Forum. Form a circle of support that has your back and your heart, so to speak, and support you to do what it is you want.
Thank you for your support throughout. I remember seeing you in Egypt and giving you a hug there. And it was amazing that you were there in person with your daughter. It was such a beautiful moment. And yes, we continued even when the world locked down. Egypt was our 35th edition and Costa Rica is our 40th edition. So we've been continuing almost every month. Of course, like you said, we wish we could have met, but frankly, this has also opened up when one thing stops and you cannot do it anymore. It forces you to look into another direction, which you probably wouldn't have looked at otherwise. So, which is true for us at the Women Economic Forum. We wouldn't have looked at the virtual dimension and all the possibilities that it brings of connecting to women in the last mile. My sisters Sharon and Tanya just before us were talking about inclusion of refugees and inclusion of immigrants. And you know, this heart that reaches out to one and all is so important, and we are able to do that with technology. Push the envelope a little more and push the million circles a little more. Who knows, we may have 10 million, 100 million, who knows. It's possible with technology. The ripples are traveling very fast, far and wide. But of course, what is it that travels fast, far and wide is the pure, the land of Pura Vida has told us it's the pure spirit of wanting to connect, wanting to touch hearts. You know, and thank you for sharing your learning about how we've learned to dream again in this period, this liminal moment between the way we were living life earlier and between the way we can possibly live life in the future. And this present moment, we have to dream with open eyes about who we are and what we want, and step into the future with an awakened mind and an open heart. And also, I think you importantly mentioned something that we must continue to do. So many awakened, aware women coming together at the Women Economic Forum conferences. We must continue to do. So I take that as continue to dare. Because when women do, the dare is automatic, I think. So there's a dream and dare, and the do is ingrained in all of that. So thank you for sharing that. For me, the learning has been, I've always been on a spiritual quest, So everything that has come out of our work has practically been my pursuit of my own spiritual path. And everything's sort of just come out of that. It's not like I had this blueprint or a plan. Yes, I had a vision. I had a vision of doing something that was empowering for me as a woman, for women around. But I never thought that it would become this, right? So that spiritual quest, which was my Pura Vida, is my Pura Vida. I start with it, I end with it. I got to take it to the deepest, mostest level inside of me in this time. And I think I'm better off because of that. And I truly believe that humanity, of course, we are looking for how to meet the public health challenge, the economic challenge of this virus. But I think we have to learn to train ourselves to look at how we can also bring out the best from every moment. And in doing that, I think, just become a better person by just connecting to my innermost dream as a soul. And so thank you for sharing that. Yes, we are very much on our path to Mission Million, which is the topic of this session. Jean, tell us, in this time that nobody envisaged and all that's happening, what do you think is going to be the importance of Mission Million? Is it ever more? Are we going to achieve it sooner than later? Is it going to be there's going to be a change in the qualitative shift of the energy of the million women? What is it that in this 40th edition of in Costa Rica, you could tell us about and inspire us about how to connect the million women that we are en route to connecting? And tell us a little about that.
Well, I'm thinking about how the world changed for women in the 1970s, which were called the decade of the women's movement. And it grew out of women talking honestly to one another at the end of the 60s. It appeared to be just women talking together. So it was kind of ignored because, after all, women always talk. What are they doing? Well, what they were doing was telling the truth of their own lives and the dreams that they had for themselves. And they supported each other to be who they could be. And so much of patriarchy limits women, describes what women are supposed to be. And the women lose their sense of being able to become who they could possibly be. And what the women's movement did in the 70s was meet in consciousness raising groups and in conferences. That's why I think the Women's Economic Forum in Costa Rica, as in other places, is so important, because the movement of the women's movement in the 70s that moved into the end of the century was begun with conferences where women met each other and stayed in touch with each other. Because you can grow up in a community, in a family, where you're expected to live out a certain form that is not truly yourself. But who do you talk to? Who supports you to be who you could possibly be? Well, the women that you meet at conferences, such as this one in Costa Rica, the ones that have been all over the world, and it seems to be like the women's conferences that were held in the 70s. And now when I'm looking at television and seeing the pandemic numbers grow up, and the doctors who are on the front line, so many of them are women. They were empowered in the 70s to take that possibility seriously, and now they are doctors and governors and mayors, not in huge numbers, but amazing if you're not used to seeing women in these positions of authority and responsibility. So we grow when we see each other stepping into our roles. And if you would think about having a woman's circle with a spiritual center. I like that you brought up the spiritual part, because essentially the idea of the Mayan circle is to form a circle of women meeting regularly, that has whatever it is that you say and feel and know is your spiritual center that you share with others. And so it empowers, it ensouls. It also makes it possible to support each other through really difficult times. A lot of circles were formed with cancer patients. And if you didn't have that silence too, it gets pretty hard if one of the sisters has a remission and the cancer is growing and you're afraid, oh, it could be me. But if you aren't expected to be the total support system for each other, you are the support for each other, but you tap into a well or a fire or the image of the sacred center. And in silence, you can meditate, visualize, and pray for one another and bring energy in. So the idea of the Mayan circle is just that. Simple, really simple, just like the women's consciousness raising groups. Look, really simple, but they move. It's like throwing in the cover of the little book called The Mayan Circle, How to Change Ourselves and the World. It's an image of a pebble thrown in a pond, and it ripples out, and it ripples out. So what Beautiful. You are doing in Costa Rica, what you did in India, and all over the world is bringing women together to look at each other and see in each other the strength that is also.
Thank you, my sister. Ever wise, ever so inspiring, and each time throwing so much more light of wisdom on what we are doing. My question to you is, this pandemic, has it given us permission to talk about openly, like we've spoken publicly of the public health challenge? Today, no matter what country you are in, whatever culture, whatever language you speak, we are united globally in a certain consciousness and engendered by the pandemic. Do you think it has, once again given us a global one voice to talk about the pandemic in the women's issue space, which is about domestic violence, sexual harassment, which are very universal experiences of women wherever they are, and have had pandemic proportions, but we haven't quite really spoken about it, and it hasn't really seized the collective consciousness of women and men, everybody. Are we ready as a society to talk about those pandemics and put them out from our systems as well? Because together we have confronted as women and men across the world this one pandemic, and it has united us in some sense as well. So do you think finally the gender war can be over now that this war on the virus has brought everybody together, and with that togetherness we are ready to look into the eye of the other pandemics that are floating around us and which need to end soonest possible?
I don't know. I think that one of the things about being in a lonely place is a certain level of not knowing. a level in which we are growing through connecting with one another and learning from one another. And most of all, maybe feeling a sense of humility and being fortunate, because around us are people who are suffering, dying, and people, anybody could get the coronavirus, COVID-19. And some people survive and some people die. So it's so vivid, this world we live in, where life is both precious and unpredictable. So if you accept that you're in a place where you do not even know what you are going to do to make a living because it's shut down, and then you start to think about what it is that you really are interested in. What is your passion? What is it you really want to do with your life? If you can help somebody else, how would you help them? And the big questions come, and the limitations come, and the fears come. And when you start to be with others who share a sense that this is a time in history that is like few times in history, but every once in a while in history, there's a major event that affects the whole planet. And what happened before this pandemic is we were in total denial in America. We weren't, but the government was, that there's no such thing as global warming. It's a hoax. Well, it's not. And now that we've had experiences of not only the temperature rising, but the air getting worse and wildfires as a result, we have some immediate awareness that things are changing on this planet. So when you are in a liminal place, you can hope, you can work towards what comes next, but it is also a period of not knowing. And yet, every one of us that does something that makes a difference in this pandemic time of liminality is affecting where we will go next. Now, say we have a year, we human beings, and there's the pandemic, there's the economic problems that everybody has, and there are the problems of gender power over, the basic problems of patriarchy. And shifting during this time of lockdown and pandemic and all, as women step up and help others and are helped by others, to no longer listen to authority who has a right to tell us what we should do and who we are, just because of the gender differences. This is both an awful time and an amazing potential time. And
like they said, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So it's a bit of that. But what is your feeling? I totally get it. Like, this is a time of not knowing, and that's the beauty of it, because we are listening. We are listening, which we don't do so often. We're so often to just saying, speaking, doing our bit. We don't stop to listen. And even when we stop, there's so much going on in our own heads that we think can be, that we are not in this very magical zone of not knowing, which is when we try to know, and because of which we try to listen. And when we listen, the answers, like they say, are blowing in the wind. So when you are in this space of not knowing, and when you try to listen, to the times, what do you think is, for the women, the message is clear. In fact, I feel we are a culmination at a certain point in history. You evoke the 70s. I'm a child of the 70s. I'm born in the 70s. We've come a certain way. And we are birthing a new kind of woman here. But I don't know if there's been, men's circles as such that have been birthing the new kind of man. And of course, I hope that that is the work that we do at the All Ladies League, the Women Economic Forum, is that by the agency of the woman, who is the focus of the focal point of the family, in terms of the heart focus, she's the heart of the family, and she keeps everybody together. And according to us, a family begins to fall apart, or any person begins to fall apart when they don't have the center of the heart holding it all together. So it is the woman, she holds the family together. But it would be so much nicer if her soulmate, her better off, and in many cases the man, would come together and drop this constricting mold of patriarchy and just come together as two human beings, and awaken the feminine within the man and awaken the masculine within the woman, and together as one divine unity do what they have to do in the world and make their homes and societies a better place. So do you think this pandemic has pushed men as well? What is your feeling when you listen? I no, none of us knows. We are all sitting here talking to each other. But what is your feeling? Do you think it is affecting men in a similar way, that it is pushing everyone to a space of questioning why, how, why not? And would that be a harbinger of change?
Well, I think that it really varies a great deal. That I think in some households, domestic violence is much worse than it used to be. I think that people are stressed out, and in that stress, things can get worse and they can get better. And I happen to hold to the possibility that in times of real difficulty like human beings are going through now, the potential for positive change is real. And because you mentioned you being a child of the 70s, well, in the 70s, beginning with the women's movement, there have been like at least two generations, or maybe three, in which there have been quite a bit of equality between men and women in the United States. And there have been men's circles and men's movements. So there is a possibility. You see, it's not just about women, it's about men being able to be who they were meant to be also. Men are even, in many ways, more suppressed and required to behave in a certain way by their male culture that calls them a sissy and will beat them up if they're heart oriented, for example. It's not easy to conform to either models. But one of the interesting things is that we have learned that since the 70s in the United States and other parts of the world, women have been educated as well as men, and have gone into the professions and have gone into the physics and sciences and are teaching in faculties and things like that. Well, women start out with a slightly different kind of a brain. And when you are able to be both a woman who is expected to relate, and in fact does relate to others, you have two sides of the brain with lots of fibers growing between them. And if you grow up as a man who is as a boy, not allowed to have feelings, that part of your brain doesn't grow as much. And so the men the biggest, most powerful men in the world who oppress everybody else probably has an asymmetrical brain. So women who have to juggle things, you have to manage, even if you're not educated, you have to imagine to use the money you have to buy the food that you can afford to cook. You've got to plan things. Women have the potential truly of being more whole people as a gender than boys who become one-sided men can. So what happens when women are able to find their voice and express themselves because they actually are called upon to help others and their families through this difficult time? Increased respect for the feminine. In fact, one of the things that is happening more is that the possibility of becoming who you were meant to be. In big psychological words, it's individuation. but basically it's becoming who you were meant to be. What kind of talent did you come into this world with? Can you develop it? Things like that. So with more opportunities to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Jean, for evoking the power of possibility and, of course, the possibility of change when men will come together in their wholeness, in their fullness, in hand with the women of the world who come with their fullness. And definitely, we are making steps in that direction, even though it had to take a crisis, maybe, to push us into a zone of listening to what the planet is saying, listening to what our hearts are saying, listening to what our dreams are saying, and listening to each other as women and men, as cultures and societies. So it's wonderful to come to this point of the conversation where all this newness is getting birthed and created. And what we've been able to do at the Women Economic Forum is something that we've been again wanting to do for a long time. But this pause allowed us to tap into that possibility that we can actually do it, is that there are very few, when we meet at the Women Economic Forum, we often talk about networking as to being one of the spaces in the economic space, the counterpart, the economic counterpart word of the, or the notion of meeting heart to heart in spiritual circles is meeting heart to heart in spaces where we can manifest other dimensions of our being. We can be the spiritual self. We've taken this body, so we can be the material self, all with togetherness without leaving the spirit behind. We can be the social self. We can be our relational self. We can be the economic actor in society, have the confidence of earning our own money. My dear soul sister, Widet Bouchamay, who I quote from Tunisia, she is a Nobel Peace Laureate 2015. And she said, La liberté commence par la porte-monnaie, which is my liberty begins with my wallet. That if I don't have my own money, how do I make a decision about my life, about my choices? So that becomes the economic instrumentality is very important. So we've done our little bit of, we've been bringing women together, talking, connecting, supporting in awareness. And it's been a decade long of work. And on those very beautiful pathways, we have grown the trees which are now fruit-bearing trees, which I say are concrete possibilities now, where women can flourish themselves and feed their families as well. So we've started two very important initiatives in the lockdown, and these have been in the psyche for a while, but they got manifested in the lockdown. They got really physically transformed in this lockdown period when we paused. We were going all around the world with our conferences, so we paused. We couldn't travel anymore. So we brought out these blueprints, which had been lingering with us for a while, and we created them. And in the past 9 months, they have seen like an upward growth. And of course, it was never easy to get the people together, people facing all kinds of personal challenges, economic challenges. And yet it is in these moments that you find the greatness of the human spirit. And we all rise to the occasion and give our best. And because of that, we have today created the She Economy, as you know, which is the world's first global, completely free marketplace, e-commerce for women entrepreneurs worldwide. So you can be anywhere. You can be in Costa Rica, you can be in India, you can be in America. You go on sheeconomy.com, you create an account, which takes you 30 seconds, and you can start uploading whatever goods you have to sell to the world, showcase to the world, or whatever services you offer to the world. You get your own personalized website, everything free. You can find people who will find you on this digital directory and be able to purchase from you or engage in B2B, like we say, business to business collaborations with you. because there's a place that they can find, and I hope companies will also come here to find their potential board members, because people always complain there aren't enough women, we don't find enough women. So finally, this is going to be a place where you can actually find those million women. The mission million is going to get translated into actually seeing those million women entrepreneurs on she economy. So that's one. We are very, very proud of that and very excited and looking forward to all the possibilities that is going to be getting. We're getting some, we haven't yet formally launched, and we already have like 1,000 women who we are working and sort of streamlining, testing out the platform with. But yes, before the end of the year, it will reach one and all. And second is the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, WICI, we call it for short, which of course has councils in about 154 sectors where women are represented in the economy and society, and creating that as a body of talking to the government of India, but not just the government of India, to the governments all over the world through about 100 bilateral councils that we have in 90 countries all over the world already, which are constituted with a president, vice president, with 20 members. We have one in Costa Rica too, and many other countries. In the United States, we have 4 in northern, southern, eastern, western. And then they have counterpart councils in India as well. They work together on the bilateral exchange. And these are both institutions which have been born from the movement of what we've been doing in the past decade, and sort of, concretized in these two sort of brick and mortar. One is the brick and mortar with the she economy, and one is like a more brick and mortar as an institutional framework, taking suggestions to the government from time to time, from a broad cross-section of women in India at the national level, at the state level, at the city level, at the bilateral level, in different 154 sectors, as to what are women's requirements, what do we need in terms of policy frameworks or incentives or concessions, or what changes must be made in the law for effective inclusion of women's entrepreneurship, for effective well-being of women. A lot has been done. So, for instance, we have a National Cybersecurity Council as well in the WICI, and they send in a recommendation about a regulation of the online platforms, where there is a lot of content which is we could do with better content which is more respectful to women, and the content that is disrespectful to women, because it's sort of an unregulated sector, is to include it under the ambit of regulation as well. So they were able to put their little point across, and yesterday we got the notification it had been done. So when you ask, you get as well. But where is this body which is asking for women as a powerful body of, we are 250,000 women all over the world today, connected in 120 countries, including 60,000 in India, and en route to our mission million. So we've sort of concretized and put it into a framework of a women's business chamber. But of course, it's not just business. Business is a force of good. So it's about community, it's about society. So we have councils, including in sectors like anti-sexual harassment or anti-domestic abuse, in addition to the more hardcore economic industrial sectors of industry, commerce, or AI, or robotics, or construction, and especially mainstreaming women, or finding women where people say, oh, we don't find women. There are very few women in the tech space, or there are very few women. The women are there, but they have to, we don't see them so much. They just do their own bit. We are putting them together, putting all of us together as a cohesive, so everybody can actually see that there are lots of women. I was talking to somebody yesterday and I said, you are a woman in construction, and we see very few women in construction in India. And she said, but there are quite a few women in construction. And I said, even I, with all the women that I've met, I'm saying that I find few women in construction, but there's a woman in construction who knows a lot of other women in construction. So can we just bring them on board and let every woman and every man see in the world that there are a lot of women in construction? They're just not seen, so creating those platforms which are government facing, which come with expertise, with economic experience, economic entrepreneurship, and can ask for things that will pave the way for more education and more entrepreneurship and more economic inclusion in those spaces. Because of their work, their credibility, they can pave the way for the next generation to walk that path with fewer obstacles and more possibilities. So that's a little bit about how we listened to us and called in our best reserves to act on our dreams in this period.
That's a wonderful way of creating a structure that other women and young women and girls can see. I mean, one of the things about the capacity to grow into who you can be with your natural talents has to be with your capacity to imagine that you could do that too. If you never see women doing all the many things you're describing, or see women on the front lines of this pandemic being leaders and doctors and whatever, when you start to see women, then the girls and the younger women can aspire and imagine how they can do that too. And if the structure is in place, and you're talking about bringing together women who are successful or are beginning to grow into roles that women have not really been known for, what you're doing is creating a bigger world of imaginative possibilities. And you've got to be able to imagine it, but you also need structure. You need both. And so what you're talking about is with creating more structure so that you can start to see women and think, if she can do that, I want to do something like that too. And that's how people grow into who they can be, is having a combination of imagination and possibility of support. And this is where it's useful, very useful, heart useful, if those girls, women who want to go into work that no one in their family ever has done before, and who the older members of the family would say, no, women don't do that. That's not what you're supposed to grow up to do. To be able to want to do something and know you have a talent. That's why you're drawn to whatever the field is. And then to be able to get support outside of the limitation of the imagination of the family and tribe of people you are with. This means becoming connected with other women. And this is where the idea of the women's circle, who is like the unit close to you, and now with such things as Zoom, you can find your circle at conferences and then connect with them on Zoom and other platforms. Meet regularly, talk about how you're trying to start this or what you run into this problem. And the others are, well, one thing about a circle is everybody faces each other. Hierarchy is just somebody at the top who tells the people at the bottom what and who they are. So I think the combination of both imagination and actual structure, and then the ability of women to have a circle of support that could last a lifetime, because you see each other going through the trials and difficulties of life in general. And again, we role model each other. That's one of the very important things to realize, that when we're in a circle with our sisters, and it's different from 6 months to 6 years to 16 years or whatever. One of my circles is about 25 plus years of meeting once every other week. And then when the organization, the Millionth Circle, was formed based on my slender book called The Millionth Circle, How to Change Ourselves in the World, we have been meeting on Zoom. Well, we used to meet on conference calls, but now with Zoom, we meet once a month, and we're all over the United States and in parts of the world. And so you have a sense of support, the sisterhood support. And it matters, this idea of support at the heart level. For example, when I begin...
Thank you, my dear. Sorry.
Oh, I just wanted
to... Yeah, we just started. Yeah, because we have just about 2 minutes left, so...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we are closing. We've already had our beautiful half an hour. So we can maybe take Bernadita's permission to close this in 5 minutes, but I would still request like a quick wrap up so we can...
Please
do. Yeah. No, but you were saying something, my dear sister. Please complete what you were saying. We'd love to listen.
No, I would like you to finish up. And then what I wanted to do was sound this Tibetan bowl, because I want everyone who's listening to connect at the heart level so that we are in a huge circle.
Thank you. And you will send out the ripples of that beautiful vibration far and wide with that beautiful Tibetan circle. So I just want to take the opportunity to conclude our wonderful session, which was about, this whole meeting has been about strength, sisterhood, sustainability. And I just want to talk about the takeaways from our beautiful conversation today. You know, when we started yesterday, we were talking about Pura Vida, and we were talking about how the spirit is the source of all sustainability. And because we start with the spirit, if the spirit is right, we will end up with sustainability. But in that path, it's also important to mark the milestones. And I want to just articulate those milestones. What is it in the path of from the source to sustainability? What are the milestones and what does the path look like and what we must walk through? And these are from our discussion today. So of course, we start with the source, the spirit. It has to be heart-centered. It has to come from the right place in the heart. But it must, like you said, the spirit must support. My spirit must support the spirit in Jean, the spirit in Bernadita, and we come together in circles of support, like you said, in support or in sisterhood, which is another name for support, in a she for she perspective. Support, brotherhood, sisterhood, it's the same vibration, it's the same space. So from spirit, the second milestone is support, which has been the movement. It's the mindset shift we need. Otherwise, the individual spirit begins to weaken when it doesn't find that support. For the individual spirit to find strength in its movement, in its action, it needs to find kindred spirits, right, which come in the form of support. So that's our second milestone on this path from source to sustainability, which is support. Then you very beautifully spoke about, when I shared about the Women's Indian Chamber and She Economy, you spoke about the need for structure. Right, so it's while we have the support and it's like the foundation of a building, right? We have that support, we have the right energy, the right tools, we are in the right land, in the right space, we've done things with the right energy, we have the strength of support, but now we have to evolve it into a structure wherein other people can find that spirit and find that support, right? And the structure should represent the best of that imagination concretely, vividly. So if people can see that structure, they can see their dreams coming true through that structure as well, which is what we've been able to create. But again, the structure, each time it's created, and we see this problem, and I wanted to come to it, in so many institutions around the world that have been created and are facing a crisis of confidence, that they begin, once we become brick and mortar, we become structures, we forget the spirit that created us, we forget our raison d'etre, we forget that we were meant with, we were born of a certain spirit. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been born. We were created, that structure was put up because there was a need in society. And we forget to remember that spirit and to serve that need. So I think what I would like to come after structure is a remembrance of that spirit to serve, is to serve the needs of society, is to serve the needs of the people. Otherwise, the structure is just a home without a heart, right? So institutions cannot forget, structures cannot forget why they were created, and I have to constantly go back and have mechanisms in place so that they remember that they are born of a spirit which comes from the source of creation. They are born of support, and their mandate is to serve whatever they are serving. And indeed, if we follow the path from the source to the spirit to support to the structure to service, we have deconstructed sustainability, because at the end of it, if you follow these kind of approaches to thinking and creation of structures, then automatically whatever you are creating will have sustainable methods and approaches and outlooks embedded into it at every step, and sustainability will be the input and sustainability will be the output. So thank you, my dear soul sister Jean, for this wonderful enabling of inspiration. And I leave you to now close this session with your fine words and the Tibetan bowl.
The sound of the Tibetan bowl, this ringing, singing sound, vibrates at the heart chakra level. And it means that all of us who have been listening and being part of this are connected at the heart level. Now, the heart is the source of love, and love is the only energy there is. That the more we share, the more we give away, the more there is in the world, and the more you have, and the more those that you give it to, that they have. Every other energy, if I give it to you, I've given you it, and I have less and you have more, except love, except the heart, except the soul and spirit from the heart. So listen to the sound, feel the sound, and feel your heart grow, because it grows. The heart of humility, of love, of service, that's what you feel right here in the center of your chest.
Thank you, my sister. God bless you, and thank you for supporting once again WEF Costa Rica. Thank you.
Gracias a las doctoras Jean Shinoda y Harbin Arora por acompañarnos, por sus mensajes en este último bloque importante sobre el poder de la sororidad. Y queremos continuar con agradecimientos a todo el equipo de trabajo, al comité organizador, a Shaha Producciones, a Tex Tecnología, a Hotel Crown Plaza Corobicí, al grupo de traductores e intérpretes, al Centro de Retiro de Orosi y el Minifundo, y a todas las colaboradoras voluntarias que han trabajado en este proyecto. También a los amigos y amigas de WEF, BN Mujer del Banco Nacional de Costa Rica, Grupo ICE, Instituto Costarricense de Electricidad, HP y a Cadena Radial Costarricense. Junto a ellas, a otro grupo de empresas que de una u otra forma nos han apoyado. Durante este foro tuvimos diversas, potentes e inspiradoras exposiciones con más de 40 líderes de opinión, reconocidas figuras que compartieron en el campo de la economía y política, el bienestar y la salud, la educación, la innovación femenina, liderazgo complementario, a quienes agradecemos profundamente. Nos acompañaron artistas costarricenses que nos permitieron compartir música y cuentos. Podrán revivir todas estas charlas, exposiciones y presentaciones en nuestro canal de YouTube. Antes de culminar el foro y darle la palabra a Bernardita Rodríguez, coordinadora general de Web Costa Rica 2020, queremos unirnos y sumarnos a un colectivo de más de 150 artistas de todos los géneros para compartir un sentimiento de esperanza. Así suena un país unido, al unísono, todos con la misma melodía. Rompemos barreras, derribamos fronteras y como la mariposa y como el colibrí, desplegamos nuestras alas y volamos todos juntos por todo el planeta. Pueden conocer más en Facebook, en el grupo Saldremos Adelante CR. Una composición del cantautor y arreglista costarricense Bernardo Quesada. Los dejamos con la canción Que el viento sople a tu favor.
Pensaste que todo esto un día pasaría,
que habría que replantearse la vida
para empezar de nuevo a caminar.
No es cierto, estamos todos en el mismo barco.
Remamos hacia un rumbo incierto,
Bajo una misma tempestad. Es tiempo de seguir hacia adelante y hacer lo que te grita el corazón. La noche más oscura siempre acaba con un sol. Si haces que el viento sople a tu favor. Si haces que el viento sople a tu favor.
se abrirá un cielo azul en un abrazo que no regresará.
Hay que creer, hay que soñar
Y hacer que el viento sople a tu favor, pues volverá el cielo azul, que esta tormenta sirva para recordar. Y hay que creer, y hay que soñar,
para que el viento sople a tu favor. Para que el viento sople a tu favor. Sabemos que el oro brilla bajo un fuego intenso, que no hay espacio para el miedo.
se abriste el corazón de par en par.
noches que el viento sopla a tu favor. Somos la suma de todos los abuelos y el resultado de todos sus anhelos. Somos ese río que corre por tus venas, los miles de poemas que cantamos con la mano puesta en el corazón.
Bueno, ¿cómo están? Disculpen por los inconvenientes. Perdimos en algún momento la señal, pero aquí estamos. Así que acabábamos de escuchar esa canción tan especial y preciosa sobre Costa Rica y cómo nos representa el manejar todo desde el corazón, y así lograremos que el viento sople a nuestro favor. De verdad que tengo mucho que agradecer. Estos 2 días han sido llenos de luz, de emoción, de angustia en algunos momentos, pero mucho, mucho que compartir con toda la audiencia. Gracias a ustedes hemos hecho esto, gracias a los que nos han escuchado, a los que nos han seguido, a todas aquellas personas que desde Charlemos nos han seguido en nuestras redes y han logrado compartir con nosotros todos esos temas que les hemos regalado. Y eso es parte del servicio que logra el Women Economic Forum, regalar temas con un significado sumamente especial que verdaderamente llegue a los corazones de ustedes y les sirva de muchísima inspiración. Tenemos que agradecer también a nuestros panelistas y a nuestros charlistas que han hecho todo su esfuerzo por estar con nosotros y han invertido su tiempo en estas conferencias. Y por supuesto al equipo de trabajo que nos acompaña desde que empezamos con este gran viaje hacia la felicidad. Así que el equipo que le llamamos nuestro core, que es nuestro corazón. Así que muchas gracias, un aplauso, que Harbin la tenemos ahí, nos está dando ese gran aplauso, muchas gracias, de verdad que sí. Y por supuesto agradecer a Harbin, porque gracias a ella es que esta organización ha existido por 5 años. Entonces, no podemos dejar pasar ni un solo día sin recordar estos fabulosos momentos y oportunidades que nos da el universo. Por último, quisiera comentarles y reforzarles que nuestro lema de Fortaleciendo Alas para la transformación, el bienestar y la creatividad dentro del marco de la sostenibilidad es parte de lo que hemos logrado transmitirles a ustedes para lograr sostener este mensaje en el tiempo y lograr trascender fronteras, y que ahora que viene el web Argentina, logremos apoyarles de la misma forma. Posteriormente viene el web Caribe el año entrante en el mes de marzo. Entonces estaremos también de la mano, como hablaba Jean y Harbin ahora en la última conferencia, sobre la hermandad, sobre el círculo, sobre cómo servirnos mutuamente, es lo que nos permite llevar a cabo todos nuestros sueños y que nos podamos transformar, que podamos abrir nuestras alas, que podamos abrazarnos mutuamente. Por supuesto que sin salud y sin bienestar no lo lograremos, ¿verdad? Y siendo creativos en cómo nos vamos a reinventar, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo vamos a lograrlo? Entonces, ahí está plasmado nuestro lema. De verdad que les agradezco de corazón a todos y paso a nuestra presidenta global, doña Harbin Aurora.
My dear soul sister, congratulations to all of you, the entire team of WEF Costa Rica, all the core team, the volunteers, the sisters, supporters, the sponsors. Everybody has made this beautiful event possible, where so many women from so many different countries could come together, share their experiences, their insights, and offer the gift of their energy to move our strengths, to energize the muscle of transformation even more in every heart. I, for one, am very, very touched and transformed by the purity, the pura vida with which WEF Costa Rica has been done, led by my dear soul sister Bernadita, and supported by this beautiful, amazing team of sisters and brothers. Thank you so much. We are so humbled, honored, and grateful with your commitment, and you inspire us all beyond your borders. You have put Costa Rica, through WEF Costa Rica, in the heart of everyone you've touched with your purity and simplicity. May God bless you always, and I'm already so excited and looking forward to the next WEF Costa Rica. But before that, like my soul sister Bernadita reminded, we have WEF Argentina also coming up on 10th of December. So the year is not over, not yet for us. With that, I wish you all a very happy Deepavali from Mother India. Like we say, happy Diwali. It is the festival of lights. So may everyone's intellect be illumined by this flame of light coming from our hearts, which is in every heart. And together, we are simply helping ignite it in each other's heart. And this inner illumination will inspire our intellect to do better, to see better, and to make our world a better place for everyone. I thank you all. I particularly congratulate all the awardees and all the participants and all the speakers for igniting this lamp of awareness in our minds, in our spirits, and filling us, our hearts with love, with your gentle spirit of sisterhood and support. May we continue to empower one another. May we all thrive, and may a million lamps of inspiration, of love, of joy be ignited all over the world, and may we all come stronger out of this pandemic and out of this challenge together. God bless you all.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Harbin. De verdad que estamos muy alegres de habernos brindado esta oportunidad. Entonces, no puedo más que, por último, quiero que conozcas, aunque sea a través de la pantalla, a nuestro equipo y me encantaría, venga, sí, sí. Venga. No, aquí todas con distancia. Ah, sí. Allá. Vení. Ahora sí que pase para allá. Eso. Eso, María. Nela, venga. Nela, porfa. Nela. Gracias. Pero sos parte del equipo. Mao, aquí, venga. Tenía que existir la producción. Sí, por supuesto. Eso. Muchas gracias.
Thank you everyone, and thank you all our attendees from all over the world, and thank you for joining this event. Our sisters kept it free of costs and also simultaneously translated it into English, which is the first one for any event in Latin America. So bravo, my sisters. Thank you for including everyone in your beautiful endeavor. God bless you. Namaste.
Namaste. Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias, audiencia. Nos vemos.
habría que replantearse la vida
para empezar de nuevo a cambiar.
No es cierto que estamos todos en el mismo barco.
Remamos hacia un rumbo incierto,
Bajo una misma tempestad. Es tiempo de seguir hacia adelante y hacer lo que te grita el corazón. La noche más oscura siempre acaba con un sol. Si haces que el viento sople a tu favor. Si haces que el viento sople a tu favor.
y se abrirá un cielo azul en un abrazo que no reverdecerá.
Hay que creer, hay que soñar
Y hacer que el viento sople a tu favor, pues volverá el cielo azul, que esta tormenta sirva para recordar. Y hay que creer, y hay que soñar,
para que el viento sople a tu favor. Para que el viento sople a tu favor. Sabemos que el oro brillaba con fuego intenso, que no hay espacio para el miedo.
se abrís el corazón de par en par.
Es tiempo de seguir hacia adelante y hacer lo que te grita el corazón.
La noche más oscura siempre acaba con un sol.
Si haces que el viento sopla a tu favor, somos la suma de todos los abuelos y el resultado de todos sus anhelos. Como ese río que corre por tus venas, los miles de poemas que cantamos con la mano puesta en el corazón.
us